Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, this is session number 2 of the Fiqh of Salah according to Hanafi Fiqh. So inshallah, we're going to go through the timings of Salah in this session. Just to recap on lesson number 1 that we did previously, we looked at the importance of Salah based upon ayat of Quran and a selection of ahadith. We then defined what the linguistic meaning of fiqh is and how it applies in terms of our Sharia. And then finally we introduced some of the commonly used terms in fiqh, just so we have an understanding, because these terms will be repeated throughout. So inshallah, we're going to cover timings of Salah as mentioned. So the first one we're going to start with is Fajr Salah. Now Fajr Salah starts when the second dawn rises. So if we look at the horizon, you're going to see that there is a whiteness that spreads across the horizon, and the end point is basically the time just before sun rises. Now it is important to note, when you do look at the horizon early in the morning, approximately 2 hours before sunrise, there is a white streak that appears across the horizon. Now this is considered to be known as a false dawn, and it doesn't signify the entering of Fajr time at that point. And then a short while after this, a more spreading whiteness appears, and this is what we call true dawn, and it is this true dawn that signifies the entering of the Fajr Salah. So to kind of make that visually more obvious, I've included 2 pictures. One on the top right, which shows what the false dawn looks like, and then the more relevant picture is the true dawn, which actually signifies the entering of Fajr Salah. So obviously this will depend on where you are in the world and how much clear vision you have of the horizon at that point, but that's basically the contrast that you're looking for, inshallah. Next we have Dhuhr Salah. Dhuhr Salah basically enters once the sun has moved away from its peak, which is basically also known as almost like the midday time point, roughly there or thereabouts. And the end point is when the shadow of everything is twice its size, excluding the normal shade at midday, per Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh. So for example, if the shadow at midday is 3/4 of a meter, then at the end time it would be around 2 3/4 of a meter. Now, in the Hanafi school and other schools as well, there are differences of opinion, of course, in many matters. In this particular situation, the difference of opinion between the Hanafi school and other schools of thought is around the shadow of the length that must be reached before the end time of Dhuhr. Now, the other schools take the opinion that the shadow must only be 1 times the length of the object, taking into consideration the shadow that was present at noon. And this was also the opinion of Imam Muhammad and Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayh. Now, given the difference of opinion that exists, the Hanafi scholars consider it better to pray Dhuhr before the shadow is 1 times the length of the object, and to pray Asr after the shadow has reached twice the length of the object. Then we move on to Asr Salah. Now Asr Salah starts when Dhuhr Salah finishes per the above criteria, and its end point isn't until the sun has not set. Maghrib then is when the sun has set, and its end point is as long as the twilight, also known as Shafaq, has not departed, and that is the whiteness that is seen on the horizon after the redness, according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh. However, the Sahibain, the Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh, have said that twilight is considered to be the redness. And then Isha is basically when the twilight departs, and Isha can be prayed up until as long as the second Fajr has not appeared, i.e. the true dawn that we discussed earlier. And then just a side note here, that Salatul Witr is contingent upon having prayed Isha. You cannot pray Witr of Isha before the Fard have been offered. So the question arises is, where is the evidence and proof for the timings of Salah? Like, how did the fuqaha, the jurists, decide upon the different timings of Salah? So it comes in a hadith narrated by Imam Tirmidhi in his collection of hadith called Jami' Tirmidhi. It's a hadith narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, who narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Jibreel alayhi salam led me in Salah twice at the house. The house meaning Kaaba. So he prayed Dhuhr the first time when the shadow was similar to the length of the strap of a sandal. Then he prayed Asr when everything was similar to the length of its shadow. Then he prayed Maghrib when the sun had set and the fasting person breaks the fast. And then he prayed Isha when the twilight had vanished. Then he prayed Fajr when Fajr dawn began and when eating is prohibited for the fasting person. The second time he prayed Dhuhr when the shadow of everything was similar to the length of it at the time of Asr the day before. Then he prayed Asr when the shadow of everything was about twice as length of it. Then he prayed Maghrib at the same time as he did the first time. Then he prayed Isha, the later one, when a third of the night had gone. Then he prayed Subh when the land glowed. Then Jibreel alayhi salam turned towards me and said, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, these are the times of the prophets before you, and the best time is what is between these two times. So we can see in this hadith that Jibreel alayhi salam came to teach the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam about the times of Salah, and he led him in prayer twice, in two different days. And the first days were kind of at the beginning times, and the second day was basically the end times. So he showed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when the salahs kind of begin and end, basically. And this became sort of the foundation and the basis of the establishment of the times. So I've kind of put it in a little table here just to kind of summarize what the hadith was telling us. So Dhuhr, the first time when the shadow was similar to the length of the strap of a sandal. So that was kind of the beginning point. And then the second day, when he read it again, he prayed Dhuhr this time when the shadow of everything was similar to the length of it at the time of Asr the day before. Then he prayed Asr when everything was similar to the length of its shadow. And then he prayed Asr on the second day when the shadow of everything was about twice as long as that. And then he prayed Maghrib when the sun had set and the fasting person breaks their fast. And then he prayed Maghrib at the same time on the second day, because sunset is typically sunset, so that doesn't really change too much day to day. Isha, then he prayed Isha when the twilight had vanished. And then on the second day he prayed Isha, the later one, which was when a third of the night had gone. And then Fajr, he prayed Fajr when Fajr dawn began and when eating is prohibited for the fasting person. And then it's mentioned the second time that he prayed Subh when the land glowed. So the question then may come into our minds, what about those places that don't have a regular sunrise and sunset? So for example, places like Iceland, where you may have extended periods of either darkness or sunrise for like 20 hours a day, etc. So how did they then deduce what the beginning and end times of the prayer are? So there's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ talked about the coming of Dajjal and the length of his stay, and he informed us that he would estimate the time for the prayers. And subsequently, there are three options for people who live in such areas. Number one, use the timings of the closest place with regular timings. Number two, use the timings for the last day in which there were regular timings. And number three, you basically perform an estimate of the timings. Now, there's one slight mas'ala that comes about as well. The issue of combining prayers also arises when discussing the timing of prayers. And although the Hanafi school is considered the most lenient in such matters, it is very strict in not allowing prayers to be combined except in one situation, which is when Hajj is performed. So what is the optimum timings then that we need to consider? Well, number one, you got Fajr. So here it's preferred to delay Fajr until the sky brightens. And in that we say that it's also makruh, like disliked, to pray nawafil after the Fajr prayer has been offered. Thus, by delaying Fajr, the more opportunity is given for voluntary prayers. Now, the side note here that in the Shafi'i and Hanbali madhab, they consider it better to perform Fajr earlier. So if you were to travel in the Middle East, for example, in Saudi and places, you'll find that the Fajr is also prayed right almost at the beginning time. Dhuhr, then the preferred time for Dhuhr depends on the time of the year. During summer, it's considered better to delay the prayer slightly so the people are not forced to go out in the midday heat. And during the winter, it is better to perform the prayer early. Now, note that if it's cloudy, it's also better to delay Dhuhr slightly so as to not offer the prayer before the time is entered. And that is more out of precaution. And then Asr prayer, it is better to delay Asr provided the color of the sun does not change. So now here it's considered makruh to pray nawafil after the Asr prayer has been offered. Thus, by delaying Asr, more opportunity is given for voluntary prayers, i.e. praying it before Asr. And Asr should not be offered at the time of its end. This is also considered makruh, i.e. if it's close to Maghrib time, then it's makruh then to pray. Now, note, if it is cloudy, Asr should be offered earlier so that the prayer is not offered outside of its time. Next then we have Maghrib Salah. Maghrib should be prayed as early as possible, and if it is a cloudy night, the prayer should be delayed slightly just to be sure that it's not read before its time is entered. Isha, then, the most preferred time for Isha is after 1/3 of the night has passed, but before 1/2. Note, if the Jama'ah is not at all at the superior time, then it is better to read with the congregation. Witr, it is most preferable to offer the witr prayer towards the end of the night if one is able to wake up. If one is not able to wake up, then it should be prayed before they go to sleep. So this depends on a person's ability to wake up on time to pray it. Now we're going to look at another angle of the Salah, which is basically times when Salah is disliked, yani makruh, and when it is prohibited to pray. So number one, a fard or wajib is prohibited and praying nawafil is makruh. So number one, duration of during sunrise. So when the tip of the sun appears above the horizon until the bottom appears over the horizon. That duration is actually makruh to pray nawafil, and fard or wajib should also be not performed in that time. Number two, when the sun is at its meridian, so when it's at the peak height, so typically around about the midday-ish, depending on where you are and what time at the peak is, around that time frame, it's considered also disliked and prohibited to pray Salah. And then number three, during sunset, so when the sun lowers below the horizon until it disappears. So these three times one should memorize and make sure that they avoid praying anything in that time. As a side note, sajda tilawa, so in those places in the Quran when ayats are recited and a person has to perform prostration, that's known as sajda tilawa. So it is also disliked during the above times, i.e. during sunrise, when the sun's at its meridian, and during sunset, that even the sajda tilawa should not be performed at that time. Another common term that's been used, you may have come across, is called the zawal. Now the term zawal is often referred to the time when the sun is at its meridian, but in reality the term refers to the sun moving away from the meridian, which is where basically the dhuhr time starts to kick in. Next we have a different scenario, so where a fard or wajib is permissible, but praying a nawafil, an optional prayer, is considered makruh, disliked. So in two scenarios, you got number one, during the entire time of Fajr, there is no prayer except for the fard and the sunnah of Fajr. And number two, you have after the Asr prayer has been offered. So in both situations, praying the sunnah and the fard of Fajr permissible, because it's Fajr time in that particular time period. But praying nawafil at that time is considered makruh. And likewise, once the Asr prayer has been offered, up until Maghrib, there should be no other optional prayers being prayed at that time. One thing to consider is if a person has missed prayers, qada, to make up, then obviously these are considered obligatory to make up missed prayers, and they can be offered during these times. And one may also make a prostration or recitation during these times, in contrast to point number one on the previous slide. According to the Hanafi ulama, if the sunnahs of Fajr have been missed, these cannot be offered after the fard, even if the sun has not risen. And then the only time the person can make those up is once the dhuhr time is kicked in, preferably before the dhuhr prayer. That's the kind of window of opportunity to make that up.